Take a slow breath with me, in and out. Let the breath settle naturally in your body. Let your shoulders soften. Let the day loosen its grip. Let your thoughts slow down just enough to notice the quiet space beneath them. You don't need to solve anything right now. You don't need to arrive anywhere. Just allow yourself to be here. Welcome back to From the Garden Sacred Talks, a place where we pause long enough to listen for what the soul has been whispering all along. Before we begin, notice this. You are not journeying alone. There is a quiet companion here with you, a presence in this space we call the garden. It does not speak to command. It does not demand belief. It simply walks beside you, welcoming you to pause, to breathe, to notice the stirrings of your own soul. Peaceful Gardens does not lead your path. It does not tell you where to go. We only hold the space for your own remembering. For the whispers that have always been inside you. Everything shared here is an invitation, not an instruction. If something touches your heart as you listen, let it in. Let it guide you quietly, softly, in its own way. Sometimes the greatest gift of any journey is simply knowing you have always been accompanied. In our last gathering, we spoke about recognizing the soul, that quiet moment when something inside you becomes noticeable, not loud, not dramatic, just present. Like standing at the edge of a forest and noticing a small opening between the trees, a path you hadn't seen before. Recognition is powerful, but recognition naturally leads to another question. If the path exists, where does it lead? What happens after the soul is recognized? What journey is actually beginning? Today, we explore that question together. At Peaceful Gardens, we describe the soul's journey in a simple way. We call it the sacred return. A journey of return where spirit calls, the soul responds, and the two become one. This movement has been described in many traditions across time. One ancient saying expresses it beautifully. Let the one who seeks continue seeking until they find. When they find, they will be disturbed. When they are disturbed, they will marvel. When they marvel, they will reign. And when they reign, they will rest. Seeking, disturbance, wonder, rest. Each of these movements reflects something that happens as the soul remembers its connection to spirit. But this journey rarely happens all at once. It unfolds gradually, like seasons of the heart. Many people imagine spiritual growth as a ladder. Step one, step two, step three, climbing upward towards something higher. But the soul's journey rarely works that way. It's not a ladder, it's a spiral, ever deepening, ever unfolding. We revisit some places again and again. Moments of awakening return, moments of healing return, moments of integration return. But each time we encounter them with a little more awareness. Think about your life for a moment. Have you ever learned a lesson you thought you had already mastered, only to face it again years later? Maybe in a different relationship, a different challenge, a different season of life. The same lesson appears again, but this time you meet it with a little more wisdom. That is the spiral. The soul grows not by escaping earlier stages, but by moving through them with a different understanding, a deeper understanding. You are not becoming someone new. You are remembering who you have always been. There was a moment in my own journey when I began to understand this more clearly. I've shared in earlier episodes that my spiritual awakening was not gentle. It was actually very traumatic. See, but in the middle of that experience, something extraordinary happened. For the first time in my life, I experienced what I can only describe as true love. Not the kind of love we talk about in everyday life, something deeper, something that felt like the very source of life itself. The closest way I can describe it is that it felt like a million kisses all over my body at once. Not in a sexual way, but as an unfamiliar comfort, a supernatural peace, a knowing that I was exactly where I belonged. For the first time, I felt completely loved. And when that happened, I thought the journey was finished. I thought, this is it. I finally arrived. I believed that I had been delivered. I believed I was now ready to live the life of peace and rest that I had always hoped for. But then something unexpected happened. About 6 months later, I found myself struggling again. Old patterns had returned, old habits resurfaced, and suddenly I felt like I needed another deliverance. Then the cycle repeated. Moments of awakening, moments of freedom, followed by moments where I felt like I had fallen back into the same patterns again. At first, this devastated me. I remember thinking, what is wrong with me? If I experience that kind of love, why am I struggling? But one day during meditation, I had a vision that changed how I understood my journey. In the vision, I saw myself standing in a long line with thousands of other people. At first, it looked like a crowd, but as I looked closer, I realized something strange. Every single person in the line looked exactly like me. They were like robotic versions of myself, identical, all standing patiently, almost as if they were waiting for instructions or permission. And suddenly I understood. This wasn't a crowd of strangers. This was me. All of them. Every wound, every belief, every experience, every fragmented part of my soul. Then something began to happen. The last person in line stepped forward and moved into the person standing in front of them, and they became one. Then that person stepped forward and merged with the next, and they became one. And one by one, each version of myself moved forward and became whole with the one before, until finally there were only two left, one standing behind the other. And then the final soul stepped forward, and they became one. In that moment, I understood something clearly. My awakening had been real. That love had been real. But awakening alone was not the whole journey. There were parts of me that still needed healing, parts of me that needed integration, parts of me that needed to be welcomed back home. And becoming whole meant allowing those fragmented pieces to come back together, not through force, but through love. That was the moment I realized something important. The soul does not awaken once and suddenly become complete. The soul moves through a journey of awakening, a journey of healing, a journey of integration, until eventually it learns how to rest in wholeness. As the soul continues its journey, it often moves through four sacred rhythms: awakening, healing, integration, wholeness. These are not rigid stages, they are movements of growth that appear again and again throughout life. Awakening begins quietly, a subtle restlessness, a feeling that life may hold more meaning than what you are taught to chase. From the outside, life may look exactly the same, but inside something has shifted. Questions appear. Why am I here? What is truly real? What does it mean to live from love? Awakening is not failure. It is the soul remembering that it has been asleep. For some people, awakening feels exciting. For others, it feels unsettling. You may feel drawn towards something you cannot fully explain. You may begin to question things you once accepted without hesitation. This does not mean something is wrong. It means something within you is beginning to listen. You are not lost. You are being called. As the soul awakens, another movement begins: healing. Old wounds rise to the surface, memories appear, Beliefs that once protected us start to feel heavy or untrue. Healing can feel messy, tender, sometimes painful, but healing is not punishment. It is the sacred work of loving ourselves back into wholeness. Healing is not about fixing something broken. It is about remembering that love can reach every part of us, even the parts that we once believed were too damaged to be restored. Healing is not the soul falling apart, it is the soul being gathered back together. After healing begins to soften the heart, another movement appears: integration. This is where insight becomes embodiment. Truth begins to shape the way we live. Habits shift, relationships change, the mind becomes clearer, the heart becomes steadier, life begins to align with what is real. Integration often looks quiet from the outside, but something profound has shifted. Truth is no longer something you visit occasionally, it becomes something you live. The final rhythm of the journey is wholeness. Wholeness does not mean perfection, it means peace, a quiet knowing that nothing essential about you was ever truly broken. The soul remembers its source, and instead of striving, it rests. Wholeness is not the end of the journey. It is when the soul remembers it has always belonged. Nothing essential about you was ever missing. You were always moving toward this remembering. If episode 2 was the moment you noticed the path, episode 3 is the moment you begin to understand where that path leads. Not away from you, but deeper into you. The soul's journey is not about escaping the world, it is about remembering how to live within it with love. Before we close today, I want to offer you something simple. We've talked about the soul's journey, awakening, healing, integration, and wholeness. But hearing about a journey is different from walking it. And sometimes when we hear teachings like this, a quiet question appears inside us. Where am I on this path? Am I awakening? Am I healing? Am I integrating what I've learned? Or am I learning how to rest in wholeness? The truth is, most of us move through all 4 of these movements again and again, not in a straight line, but in a spiral, the one that we talked about earlier. Some days we feel clarity, some days we feel tender, some days we feel like something inside us is awakening all over again. All of that is part of the journey. So, in our next gathering, I want to offer you something practical, a meditation, not something complicated, just a quiet practice you can return to whenever you need to remember where you are and where your soul is inviting you to grow. In that meditation, we'll gently walk through the 4 rhythms of the soul's journey. You might think of them as 4 gates along the path. At the first gate, we pause in awakening, listening for the subtle stirrings of the soul. At the second gate, we pause in healing, allowing compassion to meet the parts of us that still carry pain. At the third gate, we pause in integration, where insight becomes lived truth and the soul begins to move in harmony with spirit. And finally, we pause in wholeness, a place of rest where nothing needs to be fixed and nothing needs to be proven, just presence, just being. You may discover that one of these gates feels especially alive for you right now. Or you may simply allow the meditation to move you gently through each one. My hope is that this meditation becomes something you can return to often. In the morning, when you want to begin your day with clarity. In the evening, when you need to release what the day carried. Or anytime life feels overwhelming and you need to reconnect with the quiet wisdom within you. You can use it weekly, daily, or simply whenever your soul asks for a moment of stillness. Because the truth is, the journey of the soul is not something we master once. It is something we return to again and again, each time remembering a little more, each time walking the path with a little more gentleness. As you move through the days ahead, may you trust the rhythm of your own journey. May awakening not frighten you when new questions arise. May healing not discourage you when old wounds surface. May integration guide your choices toward what is true. And may wholeness remind you that peace has always been closer than you imagined. May you walk gently, may you listen deeply, and may every step of your journey bring you closer to the love that has always lived within you.